Originally, when I set out to make this documentary series, the current crisis had not started. Keep this in mind as you hear from our guests. Much has changed in the last year or so, and many of us wait for the rest of the world to wake up from this war and see what is really going on. Beyond that, we know the most important part of our mission is to reach others' souls and to raise their conscious awareness, help them grow spiritually, and to realize more of who they are. After my own spiritual experiences years ago, my curiosity about humanity's future led me to research many perspectives and ask hard questions. Most of us can clearly see the problems, but what about the solutions? Many religions and the spiritual community discuss a golden age, 1,000 years of peace, or a new earth. I wanted to know more. I think many of us want to know more. I want to see many perspectives and look at these patterns that even the religions seem to point out. When I see patterns, my brain goes into overdrive, and I unconsciously seek out more of these patterns in order to understand more. In the last chapter, we met Mary, who brought a spiritual perspective from the Native American community. In this chapter, we will meet someone who brings a little different perspective to the idea of a new earth.
We're all here on this world for a big event. The human race is ascending into the next higher dimension.
Many are now seeing some of the information shared by people like Dr. Michael Newton, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler Ross, and many others around the world. Many have been doing some very important work, like Todd Deviney, reporting changes and a new way of living. Delores Cannon in her numerous books.
First, you have to get rid of all the old junk, the garbage and the baggage out of your life. And then you can move into what you really came for. So many people come to see me and they said, I want out. I want to commit suicide. I don't want to be here anymore. They don't realize what they've contracted to do. As I said, all of my work is an accumulation of the different information that comes through all of these thousands of people that I see. First, let's talk about the Earth School. You've all signed on to be here in the Earth School. We all began with God. I have so many clients coming to me, and on their list of questions is always, where did I come from? No, I want to know what's my home planet. There's no such thing. We all came from the same place. Other planets are just one of the schools that we sign on to learn at. But that's not home, not the real home. We all began at the same place. We all started with God, or what they call the source. I've had many, many people go back to the source. They go back to when they were with God before they ever started on this long journey to become humans. Humans are kind of like the last part of the whole thing. And they always describe God the same way. That God is like a huge energy force. They describe it like a big bright light. And when they're there, there's total love. They don't want to leave. They're all together, everyone is together, and they all want to stay there. They don't want to leave. It is so much love and is so much beauty. And afterwards, the ones I work with, they always come through the people I work with, and they said, we can just give her a taste. If we showed her what it was really like, she wouldn't want to return. They said, a human being cannot really understand the totality of God, of the source. It is so enormous. Our belief in God and our concept of God is like a tiny thread compared to what it really is. We cannot understand the totality of it. Then they said, consider the other people out there who don't even have the metaphysical background. Their concept of God isn't even as big as a tiny thread. But they said it's the glue that holds everything together. One concept I like to bring up, that this building, this room, didn't even exist until you collectively decided to be here today. This is the kind of concepts I'm getting. It's the collective consciousness of how it creates, because everything is energy, and that's how it works. When we all began, we were all part of God. This beautiful light, this huge energy, total love, we all began there. And God decided he wanted to learn, he wanted to know, he was curious. It burst out in all directions, and when it did, all these tiny sparks flew out in all directions. Some of these sparks became galaxies, some of them became universes, many of them became your own individual soul. And that's how you all began. You are not a body, you have a body. This is just a suit of clothes, a costume you're wearing right now to play this part, this role in this stage play that you're involved in. I've had people go through the death experiences, and after they've died and they're on the spirit side, they look back at the life and they'll say, it was just a play. I can see all the actors on stage getting ready to come out and play their parts. I can see the actors in the wings getting ready to come on. And they said, but when I was there, it was so hard and so difficult. But now that I'm on the other side, it was like a blink of an eye. We get caught up in the illusion. So you are the producer, director, and actor in your own play. You're also the script writer. But the script is being written as it goes along. You know what that means? You can change the script anytime you want. You don't like the way the scene is going? Change it. This is how much power we have, and we don't realize it. But when God burst out and sent everyone out, he said, go, my children, and learn. Learn everything there is to learn. There's only lessons and experiences. And you choose these every time you come into a life. And what you chose to learn. We all have bad things happen in our lives. That's life. But what did you learn from it? And I have clients that I ask that to, and they'll say, I didn't learn anything. It was just a horrible experience. What happens then if you say, I didn't learn anything? You got to take that class over again. Earth is nothing but a school. And when we're all done with all of our schools, with all of our lessons, we take all the information back. I asked them one time, well, then what does he do with it? He said, starts over again, recreating again. So it's unending. But when you start on the schools, you go to other planets, you go to other dimensions. You have to know what all of that is like. And I proved this by taking hundreds of people. I never know where they're going to go. I think they're going to go in a past life. They don't. They go on these other planets, other dimensions, and they learn whatever it is to be learned there. But when you come to Earth, they said this is the most difficult planet in the universe. It's the densest. It's the heaviest. They don't want to come here. It's very, very difficult. They have a lot more fun on the other planets. And also they have a lot of fun on the spirit side. They'd like rather better stay over there because they're learning a lot there. There's schools, there's all kinds of things on the spirit side. And I've written about all of these things in my books. When they decide they're going to come to Earth and take on Earth's school, they're warned. This is going to be very difficult. You know this, don't you? Once you sign on for the Earth School, it's a long school. You can't get out of it until you are finished. You have to take all the grades, all the steps. You can't jump from kindergarten to college. You have to finish this class before you go to the next class. If you fail that class, there's no judgment. You just take it over again. And I've had many clients who are taking the same class over and over and over again. They go through maybe 4 or 5 lives with the same people, same circumstance, and they still haven't got it. They don't care how long it takes you to pass one class, one grade. You have eternity. But do you want to take eternity to learn one little lesson? While everybody else is going on to high school, to college, you're still stuck on the 2nd grade. You judge yourself. You decide yourself what you're going to learn when you come into a life. You set up the circumstances. Everybody here has been saying the same things. You choose your parents. You choose where you're going to live, the environment, what is going to be the best for you. You decide it all. But you have all these advisors over there, and they're always trying to help you. They can't tell you what to do, but they can help you. Because so many of us have taken so long to learn the lessons, we're caught on the wheel of karma. We haven't got it. We keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. And you don't get out of anything. You have to take that lesson until you learn it. But it's the wheel of karma. One of the only things that Jesus came to teach us was how to get off the wheel of karma. So he came to show us how to get off of the wheel. Of course, the only way is always with love. Love is the greatest thing there is. God, the source, is total love. And that's all they're ever trying to teach anyone. They say when you sign on to come here, they really admire you. You have to be very brave to take that step. So the majority of us are caught on this wheel going round and around and around. For how many hundreds and thousands of lifetimes? We're not going anywhere. Now, these 3 waves of volunteers that have come in, that are volunteering, their energy is needed to help with the ascension, to help with the shifting. It is needed to help raise this. We can't do it by ourselves. The ones who are caught on the wheel of karma can't do it. They would be with the old earth and be destroyed. When these volunteers come in to earth, they have a coating, a covering, a sheath over their body, their soul, to keep them from accumulating karma. It kind of bounces off of them because they don't want them to be stuck here. Do your job and get out. Because they told me, we have tried this 3 times. The other times we couldn't get the critical mass and it didn't work. But now we've got it. Hundreds of thousands of volunteers have come in. We have tipped the scales and we have the critical mass now to save the world. That's why we're moving into the other dimension.
Some even call it a new earth. Some of these individuals have worked in hypnosis, where they could tap into a somnambulistic state, where we see that our souls are part of a much bigger consciousness as fractals of the Creator of souls. We have learned that some children can recall a past life before they are exposed to social programming. Some have even verified places, times, and events. Those like Dr. Tim Tucker or Ian Stevenson at the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia's Department of Psychiatry, as well as even documentary series like The Ghost Inside My Child. They cover many of these interesting accounts showing that they have been other people, other races, and that most of us have lived many lives. Dr. Michael Newton and even Delores Cannon discuss this as well through their hypnosis cases. Even the Christian Bible had the teachings of reincarnation in it until it was edited out in the 6th century by the Byzantine Empire, Justinian and his wife Theodora. The idea was, if they continued with the idea of reincarnation, they would not have been seen as gods ascending into the universe. They could come back as ordinary people. They wanted to change that. They also denounced the Trinity because there would only be one God. Theodora favored the concept of monophysitism, as it meant that Christ was only divine and had one state which was not human. This helped to elevate themselves as divine as well and separate from the people. Keep in mind that these individuals were on a path of gaining power and controlling the people and land. This led to the Church rejecting reincarnation in 553 AD, and they had its references removed from writing. This cycle on Earth is unique, as we covered in Chapter 1. The matrix system locks us in a very low frequency range that is not like the rest of the natural universe, that is in a higher frequency. Then, will this cycle end? Are we approaching this great change that many are reporting in hypnosis dreams, and that are even being proposed by some scientists? This next guest is special, and I was delighted to cross paths with him. He has a way of addressing these very questions. Steve was a veteran, and he had some very interesting experiences that show, as a veteran soul, he has also come with a mission.
Hi, I'm Steve DaCosta. I'm a 73-year-old garlic farmer. I spent a lot of time doing other things, you can imagine. Was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam for 2 tours. Been a motorcycle dealer. I worked for an auto company fixing machinery for 28 years. And I started studying alternative methods of healing in 2002. After I retired from the auto company, I had already started farming, and I grow certified organic garlic. So I sing to my garlic to make it grow better.
Steve has an understanding of the universal field, the energy that we are all connected to. And in this understanding, he sings to his garlic because he understands that they respond. They respond to energy. Steve also gained some insight from some of his explorations. He discovered an event that is forthcoming, one that many are now discussing.
We're all here in the world, on this world, for a big event which is happening, which is the human race is ascending from one dimension into the next higher dimension, from 3D to, 5D. And we've come here because no race, has ever before done this while in a body. We're doing it with our bodies. Before this, they've died to ascend to a different dimension. It's really exciting, and that's why there's so many people in the world right now, because we're all here for this. There are a lot of people who are aware that this is happening and that are, I would say, ahead of us, right? A lot of the population, because they've come to be way showers. That's what they came to this world to be, to help us step into our multidimensionality. Humans are, by nature, multidimensional. When you are sleeping and you're dreaming, you are in another dimension. You hear people talk about the astral dimension. That would be the 4th dimension. Not a place you really want to hang out, because there's a lot of strange stuff that goes on there. But we are ascending to the 5th dimension as a race. So I don't really have any psychic abilities beyond I just get a feeling that something is true, or a feeling I need to do something. One of my daughters, when she was young, I was working on the roof, and I went inside for lunch, and I started feeling uneasy. My wife's talking to me, and I said, I gotta go. And I ran outside, and just as my daughter fell off the ladder from the second floor, I was there to catch her. So I get feelings, but that's the only extrasensory perception that I have. A lot of people I consider are really lucky to be able to see other dimensions and beings. Growing up, I was raised by a Lutheran stepmother, and going into church at 3 years old and being told I was a sinner when I felt absolutely perfect as a 3-year-old was a little disturbing. Luckily, when we moved to California when I was 6, there were no Lutheran churches close, so we became Episcopalians, and they're not quite so heavy into guilt. But it still didn't really, a lot of it didn't resonate with me. It just didn't feel right. And it was only after, I completely rejected religion and then started becoming more spiritual that I realized that we all have our own connection to God. All we have to do is pay attention and try, and we can get messages and answers on what's the right way to be. Some people go through some sort of an experience that awakens them to the fact that there's something else besides what normal society does. I never had one cathartic experience. I got little experiences all over the place that sort of started making me wonder, and get excited. And I decided to start paying attention and learning more, and started looking for better ways to be and feel and be connected with. All through history, there have been avatars that come into the world specifically to be as perfect a human as they can be, and to teach everybody else by demonstration, this is the way you want to try and be. So my idea of Buddha, Jesus, Mohammed, the many Buddhas that there have been, is that they've come to show the way. They didn't really want to start up a religion over what they did. They wanted to reach as many people as they could to show them there's a better way. Back in the 80s, I wanted to heal from some of my past emotional problems and experienced regression. So I actually had an experience where I remembered past lives. I had a life where I was a Roman soldier coming back from North Africa, and the boat sank, and so did I. And most of my past life memories all involve some sort of traumatic death. My view of God's source is that he wanted to experience more and created all of the universes that there are in order to experience more of himself. So we are all sparks of God working our way back to being God. As far as the question about what the soul is, I go all the way back to the Seth material. Where a soul actually has more than one person connected to it. And we all have, there's no actual time, so a soul is connected to all of the different personalities of who we are. We're all connected to ourselves in different dimensions, having different lives in what we think is different time periods, but which is all happening at the same time. And the soul is the bigger part of us that is encouraging us to become more. From everything that I've read, seen, I really believe that there are other people, entities, they may not be humans, beyond this dimension, and that eventually we will be able to converse with them, share ideas, learn from each other. All sorts of people talk about being star seeds and Pleiadians and from Arcturus, and there are dragon people and all sorts of things. And I'm ready. I'd love to be able to communicate with them. And as far as learning from other races, dimensions, I really think they could make very good teachers, because a lot of them are already living from a life of love. As far as how it would change the world, it would my opinion is that the 3D world would rapidly implode and we'd all be living in 5D. So the fifth dimension for me, I expect to be living from the heart instead of living from a computer brain. I expect to be able to telepathically connect with people, to live in love, and to not just be limited to the fifth dimension where most of humanity will be hanging out to start off with, but I've heard of, ninth, 12th dimension. I knew somebody who came to the earth from the 11th dimension and taught me about vibrational healing and frequencies. So I'm excited. So we as people are creators. We are co-creators with the rest of the universe. What we think is what we get. Whatever you pay attention to the most is going to come up in your life because you're going to create it. Your subconscious has a big part in this. your higher self, your guides and angels. You can ask for help. It's something that you need to really work on, because if you're just scatterbrained, you won't create anything that's useful to you. You'll be all over the place. So you really need to pay attention to what you're thinking about. If it's not good, you're going to get something that's not good in your future. So you start thinking about good things, and good things start coming. After our bodies wear out, we then are not in this dimension, and we go decide what we're going to do next. Whether it's going to be back into another body, whether it's going to be, we'll be from another dimension, working on helping the world. I remember my stepmother, who died of cancer when I was 21, she was 42. Came to me when I had a friend who was psychic sitting at the table in Bainbridge, and my friend started saying, "I'm not telling you that." And I said, "Who are you talking to?" I said, "Well, your stepmother's here." And she says it's your fault that she had such a bad relationship with your dad. And, she just doesn't, she's still blaming you for everything that happened. And so I'm not, I didn't want to say anything about that, but let's see if I can give her a hand here in getting to a better place. And my friend then led her to some place where she's no longer stuck, here hanging around the world, and she can go do her ascension part from the other side. As far as being connected to everyone else, ultimately, all of the masters tell us we're all one. We're all the same, even animals, everything. We just need to be less, what they call is dualistic. We need to try and work towards not being so separate. And of course, anywhere you try and go is where you'll end up and be. A little more about the next dimension and why are we going to 5D instead of 4D, and my experience with the fourth dimension is that all sorts of creations that people do, that other spirits do, they all hang out there. Demons hang out there. Consciousnesses that, have some desire on what they want to do on the earth, hang out there and try and affect people or attach to people or animals or anything. So our ascension is going to be not stopping at 4D, but going to a dimension of love and creating a whole new world, which is already almost completely created. The rest of us just have to get there. The world, our world, is opposites. Light, dark, loud, quiet, hot, cold, good, bad, spiritual, evil. And in the last 6,000 year period, there has really been an overabundance of the effects of evil on the world. And it's really hard to define it because people who do evil things are people. But we're now have come into an age where there is enough light to overcome the dark as far as behavior goes. So I'm thankful that finally the pendulum has gone the other way and we can ascend into love. So we've got the light versus dark, and my assumption is that all the lights are going to decide to go to 5D, and my impression is that the people who cannot work towards that and who stay in the dark are going to stay here in 3D as long as it exists. And some people cannot adjust to healing from their emotional trauma. They can get stuck just because they can't work on becoming better. They're so traumatized. And a lot of those, I mean, just look at in the last 10 years, the number of mass shootings and things that go on for people who are just going crazy because the earth as a world is going up in vibration too. And they can't stand the way it feels anymore. That's my general feeling. We all exist at a certain basic frequency. And sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. It depends on what you think of or what you're doing, who you're with, what chemicals you've ingested. There's all sorts of things that affect your frequency. And your frequency is really determines what dimension you exist in. You know, for most of our lives, we've all lived in the third dimension. We don't even realize that we go into the fourth dimension when we dream. When you go into another room, sometimes you forget why you went there. Because a door represents a portal into another dimension. And you're still back in the other room. You have to remember back to the other room to decide to remember what you came here into the next room for. Working on raising your vibration gives you a wider range of where you can be, what you can do. If you are always blaming stuff on everybody else, not taking responsibility for yourself, having a cocktail every night, smoking pot, you're going to keep your vibration, paying attention to the news. The news will bring you down into a lower vibration. They want to scare you into staying here in 3D because then they can control you. The people who own the news make money off of you being here. So working at raising your vibration, I mean, you can stop watching the news. Stop watching scary shows, anything that creates a feeling that doesn't really feel good is going to lower your vibration. Anytime you walk out in nature, go for a walk in a park, that's going to raise your vibration. There's a Dr. Warren Grossman who wrote a book, The Earth Will Heal You. And he healed from many physical ailments just by sitting up against a tree in his backyard. Other things you can do to raise your frequency are meditation. If you can get quiet and just be present, your body will naturally raise its vibration because you're here. If you're not all the time thinking about what you think about, really has a big effect on your vibration. So if you go looking for nicer things to do, more pleasant things to do, things that feel wonderful, anything that opens your heart up, when you can feel love flowing out of your heart, your vibration will automatically raise up. Now, if I passed over to In Between Lives, the message I would want to give to this world is do everything you can to open your heart and love everybody. Stop judging. There's all sorts of things in the world. Really, the only thing you have to worry about is you. If you don't like it, you're going to judge it in other people. And there's a little clue, which is if you don't like it and you're judging somebody as bad for doing something, there's a part in your subconscious that is like that. And it's because you don't like that in you that you don't like it in anybody else. So now I'll get a little outrageous. I have been able to determine that I'm going to live to I'm like 146 or 147. I'm only halfway through my life. What we have had on this earth is there have been a lot of other beings that have sort of decided that they wanted to use humans for mining gold, control them for whatever they wanted to do. And so they have put these programs into us that make us age early, because we really don't have to age. They make us feel things we don't want to feel. They've blocked us from our knowledge of ourselves. So, and as we ascend into the next dimension, we get to reclaim our full humanness. If you are eating some beef that, you know, was standing in line to be slaughtered and was hearing all its companions being slaughtered and smelling the blood, and the anxiety level has gone up in that animal before it's being killed, then you're going to have all these hormones in the meat that are not good for anybody to eat. So if you want to continue eating beef, you know, and you go to getting some organic beef that was humanely treated and slaughtered, then you're going to not have a lower vibration in what you're consuming. People who are really getting up there and being able to channel and stuff, most of them don't even eat any meat anymore. They eat strictly vegetarian. They don't even eat dairy because the hormones in a cow are for a huge animal and not for somebody our size. So, look around and see about diet and the effects of all sorts of things. I mean, if you're not eating organic, you're getting all sorts of chemicals in your system that don't allow you to function at a higher vibration. So really start to look around. You are what you eat.
In the next episode, we will expand on what Steve says about diet. We know that researchers have pointed out anatomical differences between humans and true carnivores like lions and true omnivores like domesticated dogs. Also, we know humans are the only ones who cook their meat in order to eat it, as human bodies are not designed to eat raw flesh. However, for some, they want to see more about how animal flesh and even some byproducts can be harmful to the body. Dr. Young has been analyzing human blood for over 4 decades. What he has found is that after consuming animal flesh and even eggs, that the blood changes and must work to rebalance. In the next episode, we will further explore Dr. Robert Young's alkaline diet for health.
I know I was meant to be here at this time on Earth. I've had so many experiences where I could not be here if I decided to be. When I was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, I was a scout pilot with the 1st Cav Division. I was on hunter-killer teams. We would go out and fly low and slow and then tell the gunships where we're getting shot at from. Well, I went to see a lady, Sarah Weiss, in Newberry. She's Spirit Heal Institute. Because I had this big hump in my back. I walked around really tight in my neck, and I wanted to know what this was about. And I knew she did healing and she could get the real reason. So I went in to see her, and she said, "Oh, wow." She says, "Other dimensions, you have an agreement with other dimensions so that they can observe warfare through you. And this hump on your back is where they connected with you to see war. And you were also being protected because, they wanted to observe war and they didn't need you to be killed. So what happened was I had this job where we had a 19% survival rate for a year, and I did it 2 different years. And I was never injured, and I would be in a helicopter and the guy next to me would get shot, but not me. And it was just an amazing experience. I raced motorcycles after Vietnam. I got back and started working in a motorcycle shop, and I would, road racing a motorcycle, I would come off a motorcycle at over 100 miles an hour and never have an injury. So I was always just convinced, well, there must be still a reason for me to be here. So after I found out that this hump on my back was for another dimension observing warfare, I decided, well, okay, so now I know what it is. And I can then work on it because being through such catastrophic experiences in the war, of course, I had post-traumatic stress syndrome. I had a lot of guilt over killing a civilian once. I then was able to work on my emotional problems and mostly get straight. Also, there's another aspect of having this hump on my back, agreeing before I was born to work as a portal. So other dimensions can observe warfare. I became aware of it, I knew that I learned eventually that I would have to dissolve the agreement to do this, because I certainly didn't want to do any more war. And I eventually dissolved the contract that I had with them, and that helped me straighten up a little bit too. I found out that many lives ago, I was walking the earth with a high vibration, very spiritual, love flowing. I had a friend who was a part of my life that we went around doing a lot of healing and teaching. And in that life, this friend of mine, who I dearly loved, betrayed me and was responsible for my death. Well, my reaction to this, my total wounding, was to come back and be a soldier in the next life. And I didn't straighten it out in that life, and I went through over 200 lives as a soldier, fighting, destroying, and even in this life I was a soldier, but I have worked my way out of that. I joined the National Guard 16 years after Vietnam and started flying helicopters again. And then they had Desert Storm, and that was it. I quit. I don't want to do that again. We can get stuck, and I was stuck for so many lives, not being afraid to heal from this betrayal wounding. So we really have to work on our woundings from childhood and from other lives, because they have energetic hooks that are, affecting our life now. And so it's really something we have to work at to get rid of those lower vibrations so we can be loving people. The key to being able to let go of these really hard woundings that affect us and we don't seem to be able to get away from is to be able to forgive. To be able to forgive the other person, to realize that before we came into that life, we had an agreement to do this together, and that, it was actually going to happen. It wasn't something that we can blame on somebody else, that we can blame on ourselves. We have to forgive ourselves and the other person, because that's what's keeping us trapped in the energetics of it and not being able to heal. So sometimes we think the world is haphazard, and we go through these experiences that, that we haven't planned on. No, we have a plan for this life when we come into it, that we're going to tackle this problem and we're going to try and accomplish this. We have a job to do. My mother, who was a pilot in the Second World War, was extremely unhappy with when she became pregnant. She married my dad, who was also a pilot. And here she's, home, get dinner on the table for the man who's going to go out and do it all. Sure, she's trapped being a housewife after being a pilot. She was very depressed. She was uneasy about what life was, and me being in the womb, I could feel all of this. So I'm, getting born into a life where I'm really worried about what life is going to be like, because, my mom is really not happy. And I came into this life, and I've got a previous agreement with her to she was killed in a car accident. I was in the car too. I have a newspaper article on her throwing me out of the car at the intersection before the truck hit the car. So, now I'm motherless. But this is something, I just picked a hard path for this lifetime so I could heal, so I could learn that this is something I chose, that I could learn more and overcome all of the things in this life so I could finally help with the Ascension, because I know enough.
It's time for us to remember. It's time for us to understand that we are all connected. We are all part of the Creator Source. It's time for us to embrace the light. You were created by an intention of discovery, and as a spark of the Creator, you have the free will and the ability to create, think, and learn to expand your existence. Remember your soul. It's time for us to remember who we are. It's time for all of this forgetfulness to slowly drift away. It's time for us to remember who we are. As a part of creation that has a connection to the Creator Source, you have the ability to send your intentions out and create in your world. We are all connected and part of each other. Look around and you will see humanity is a great creator. And this is because we come from a great creative force that intends to have us reunited one day. Until then, we are part of the Creator Source, and we must raise our conscious awareness in order to move in that direction in our lives. It's time for all of this forgetfulness to slowly drift away. We must make a conscious choice between light and the darkness.
It's time to do inner work. It's time to do inner work.
Will we serve others or become self-absorbed and unkind? We have been sleeping under a forgetful veil. Time has come for that veil to thin and ultimately fall. Graduation is coming, and this play of life with duality will be transcended by those who are ready. The time has come and changes are at hand. The awakening is happening, and our conscious awareness is becoming a powerful source against darkness. Ultimately, darkness will have to be absorbed by the light. Our awareness will have to include those things beyond our simple visible spectrum. A whole new world awaits us, and we are about to embark on an exciting journey beyond the everyday life of human who works, pays taxes, and is controlled by carnal factors. Embrace this journey as you now rediscover who you are and why you are here. It's time for us to remember. It's time for us to embrace the light.
And I then attempted suicide multiple times. I now, to this day, believe that I failed that day, those attempts, because I had a purpose. My purpose was to share with you and other people that we're not victims. We're only victims as long as we allow ourselves to be victims. We allow the negativity to take over, and we allow the negativity to impact us so much that silence can kill us. And I have decided that I am not going to be silent anymore. And ever since I made that decision, my life has changed. I have gone through experiences where I know that I'm not here alone. Where there was a moment I was out at a park and there was a shooting, and all I remember was feeling the bullets fly past my head, and I didn't understand how I got from the middle of the road to the grass. But friends say that it was like I was picked up and taken to the grass.